Like I'm like my grandmother. Hello.
Okay, we're live. We are live.
Hi.
Emilia Clarke, congratulations on your Emmy nomination. Tell us about your reactions to that really great surprise.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it definitely hasn't sunk in. It didn't sink in when they were telling me on the phone at 6 a.m. and it still hasn't sunk in now. It's a wonderful feeling. The thing that I'm most happy about is the kind of the general nominations for the whole show. It's pretty wonderful to see David and Dan be nominated for their writing. I think is pretty amazing and very well deserved.
Mm. Now, when you're nominated for an Emmy, something that would have been new for you this year is you have to submit an episode to be viewed by the people voting in that category. And you chose to submit episode 4 of the season, and now his watch has ended. Were you involved in that choice at all? And if so, what led you to that?
No, not at all.
Oh.
No, that kind of happened all without me without me knowing.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead, Matt.
Yep. Well, it's the episode where you've got the big "Free the Slaves" speech at the end, and you save the people. What was it like doing that scene and that episode?
It was incredible to film. It was it felt very real. There was a lot of people there, and it was incredibly exhilarating, and the only thing missing was actual dragons.
You know, Danny had such a great trajectory over the 3rd season, and episode 4 was one of the highlights, according to a lot of the fans and critics, especially obviously the scenes in Astapor. Would you say that was your favourite scene of filming the whole of the 3rd season, or do you have another highlight?
Yeah, I think it definitely would be. I think put my Valyrian to the test, that's for sure. But it was getting to kind of do that switch, getting to kind of play or not play how little everyone else knew what was gonna happen. So kind of getting to sort of be the only person who was even vaguely aware of how it could turn out was pretty incredible, and just getting to kind of sock it to them really was quite amazing.
We had a question in the chat room from RBTK1721 asking about the schedule of Game of Thrones, and like it's sort of, would it be hard for you to sort of like single out an episode in the sense, because in some ways when you're filming it you don't think of it as episode by episode, or how does exactly those how is it shot and what's your schedule like on the show?
Well, I'm quite lucky because of where I film in the world. We normally kind of film it almost chronologically for my character. So it's the directors who are jumping in and out of kind of throughout the 4 or 5 month filming process overall. But the schedule is a force to be reckoned with. It's pretty insane. That many characters, that many different locations, that many different units. There's a lot going on.
Yeah. How do you feel being so separate from the rest of the show? Like, do you love being, on the other side of, in another continent, so to speak, or are you dying to get across the narrow sea? And if so, is there another actor that you would like to share some scenes with, or that you're looking forward to sharing some scenes with?
Yeah, I am very much like Danny. That I'm desperate to get over to Westeros where everyone else is. Yeah, I am. I cannot wait for if that is going to happen. And I think Tyrion has got to be one of the characters I'm kind of dying to get to work with. Because Peter's just such a legend and so wonderful. It would just be really fun to work with him. But also because I think that Dany and Tyrion would get on really well. I think we would have a lot of banter.
With Daenerys, we've seen her grow so much over the years, from sort of like this very helpless young girl getting sort of traded off into marriage to sort of this strong leader to sort of wandering in the desert. And then this season, this commanding sort of breaker of chains and slave freer. What do you think the most important thing Dany's learnt over this sort of 3-season journey on the show?
I think one of the biggest things that she's learned is to trust herself, really, is to kind of, she's all she's got, and in trusting in that, she's now got a 10,000 strong army, 3 dragons, 3 advisors, and kind of she continues to trust in her own strength, and she's just going to get stronger and stronger.
Yeah. You referred to the use of language earlier. That is one of the aspects of your character that is really quite fascinating. You've had to speak Dothraki in the first season and sometimes in the other seasons, and now you're speaking quite a lot of Valyrian. How challenging is it for you as an actress to be mastering these, made-up languages and to be using them quite often in all of your scenes?
Well, it kind of, Dothraki started off as this really scary thing. It was an incredibly daunting prospect, learning those lines. I remember being petrified and kind of getting the freeze every time the camera would turn on me and I had to do my first little bit in Dothraki. I remember kind of just being at a loss for words. Your brain just freezes over, and it's strange how fast how quickly it's become normal for me to be speaking in a language that doesn't actually exist outside of Game of Thrones. Valyrian rolls off the tongue so much easier than Dothraki. It was a much easier language to learn, that's definitely for sure. And it could just be because I'm secretly really method and Valyrian is my mother tongue, so it should be easier.
That's what I thought, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just very dedicated. Yeah, so it's bizarre how quickly it's become a normal part of what I do with Dany, and it's fun to be pushed in that way, I think.
Mm. In Game of Thrones, sort of family is such a big theme throughout, and sort of family loyalty and things like that. Yet Daenerys, Dany doesn't have any family, and she actually was prepared and played a hand in her brother, her only family, sort of dying. Do you think that gives her a freedom on the show that the other characters might not have in how she moves forward in the game?
Well, I think right now that could be the case, because of the fact that she just has the memory of her family, and yes, she was pretty integral to her brother's death, but he wasn't very nice to her, so I feel like it's okay. The problem with the family with Dany is that in her mind, from what Viserys brought her up believing was that her family were pretty amazing and completely sane, and the rightful heirs to the throne, and that she was part of a spectacularly special family, when in reality her father is the Mad King. And I think that realization is going to not help her in the long run, and I think that her kind of realization of that, and I think that her sort of coming to terms with the memory of this kind of family that she sort of assumes to be perfect in the way that her brother has described them, in reality being completely the opposite, is I think is gonna prove to make things a little difficult for her.
Yeah. I've got a question from the chat room. Phoenix529 wants to know your perspective on playing such a strong and empowered woman. George Martin is among the few pioneers like Joss Whedon and others who really enjoy writing for strong women, and you get to play quite a famous one in literature and obviously now in television. What are your thoughts on that?
It's an absolute dream. It genuinely is a dream to get to play a strong female character, and to get to play one where I've been with her on the journey of self-discovery in that sense, and of kind of becoming more and more powerful, not because of the men that are around her, kind of in spite of the men that are around her in a very male-dominated society. It's wonderful. It's wonderful getting to be the character that's kicking ass. It doesn't always happen for girls. shots. So I love it.
Well, you definitely are kicking ass, and you've got the dragons, all the slaves. You seem to have this sort of interesting mix for Game of Thrones of the political ambition and the sort of some moral compass on the show. What would you say is Dany's big weakness? Like, what do you think her flaws are as a character?
I think that she still has the residue of naivety of youth. I think that whilst she has seen a huge amount for someone her age, and whilst she's been through a huge amount and is wise beyond her years, she's also still quite quick to call on things, and quick to kind of have her opinion, and quick to judge. And I think that later on, I think the best thing about Dany is that she learns from her mistakes really, really very quickly. So hopefully it won't prove to be too much of a problem later on. But I think that's kind of what her biggest weakness is.
I'm talking more about the process of actually making the show. You, as a character, your character looks quite different to you as a person, and more so than a lot of the other characters. And how important is it for you, for hair, makeup, costume, sets, all that kind of thing, for you to get into her headspace?
I mean, it's helpful because it takes roughly about two and a bit hours to put the wig on. So there's that time every morning, be it 3 a.m. or 4.
Sounds
getting
like fun.
Yeah. No, it's there's always that time to kind of to get into it. But also, I'm incredibly lucky in that I film all of my stuff in relatively small blocks, so it's kind of straight through, unlike a lot of the other Game of Thrones Game of Thrones characters. And so I'm kind of once I'm in it, I don't really leave. It's not really kind of jumping in and out for me. It's kind of easy to be with her for that amount of time that I'm filming.
And I guess also on that the process, you spoke earlier how filming that Free the Slaves scene was great, other than the lack of dragons. What is it like acting with these dragons and being the mother of dragons without actually having the dragons on set?
Yeah, me and the green tennis balls get on very well.
Nice.
Yeah, it's you kind of just have to use your imagination, which is quite freeing and wonderful, to kind of to be able to play with what you see in your mind. And it's amazing that every time I end up watching the episode, it's exactly how I thought they would be or they would look. But it can be a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, to make it look realistic. You're kind of sort of, how heavy is a dragon?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good question.
The technicalities.
Well, that's right. I was just thinking, in terms of the process, though, of the VFX shots, is it a very time-consuming part of it? Because I can imagine, people who act in Star Wars and other sci-fi shows, they're just generally on a green set for most of the time. You're not really in that situation, but you are having to act with something that doesn't exist in front of your eyes. Just explain to us how difficult that actually is.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, the shots are set up brilliantly, and it's kind of, the scenes where we're filming with the dragons always tend to be slightly slower, because you kind of have to take that in consideration. And as soon as we've finished the dialogue, the special effects guys have to run in and kind of take the shots that they need, which logistically is kind of takes you out of yourself for a moment as an actor, and then you kind of get thrown back in. But when you kind of really break it down and see what they're actually doing, it takes a tiny amount of time to than you would expect to create an incredible CGI dragon. But yeah, it's a challenge.
Do you have a favourite moment for Daenerys over the course of the series?
Oh, there are loads. There are quite a few. Kind of have to be from each season. Anything with Jason Momoa, my Khal Drogo. Anything with him. the season 3 there were quite a few. Episode 4 being the highlight, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely the kind of the combination of everything. But one of the first scenes with Harry Lloyd, who plays Viserys in season 1, where I kind of turn on him for the first time when he slaps me, is definitely a highlight.
Yeah.
Would you say that's the turning point for her in the series almost?
From season 1?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it could be. I think it's the first time that she's seen the effect that she can have on someone, that when she kind of uses her strength and calls upon calls the situation as she sees it, and it kind of does. I say that she's strong in spite of the men in her life, but I think that Khal Drogo is a big reason for her being able to kind of see her in strength.
Let's go back to the Emmys because, let's be honest, this is very, very exciting for a show like Game of Thrones to continuously improve itself, and to get some more actors in the list of nominees is really, really good for the show and bodes well for it on Emmy night. What do you think of your competition? Have you seen any of the women that you're up against in that category?
I don't stand a chance. I've got no, absolutely. There's no way it's going to happen. I'm just genuinely over the moon, and just it's ridiculous. It's absolutely insane to even to be nominated, to be amongst them, to be placed in that category is phenomenal. And yeah, so.
So I'm not gonna expect to see any kind of death match between you and Dame Maggie Smith, because that's what I was getting at.
Well, Brits fighting it out.
Yeah, I love that. We need to see more of that, I think. Yes,
definitely. Just having a word off, see who can sort of say the most convoluted sentence. Yeah.
Okay.
It's very hard for us at Goldderby to rate your chances in this category, largely because, in one sense, we've never seen a sort of a fantasy character with dragons and things like that contend in this race. There isn't really a precedent to go back on. And also, your scene at the end is so good, but it takes so long to get to it. So, if voters stay and do their job and watch the whole DVD, it's a very impactful scene. So, I guess that's...
they might not get to the end?
They should. They should. They definitely should.
Bloody well better.
They are signing a thing saying they're going to watch the whole thing. So.
But speaking of that, Emilia, I don't know if you read any of the reviews after that episode aired, but I remember when it happened, people were just falling over themselves for the impact that it made. I mean, people who hadn't read the book. When Dany frees the Unsullied, it's a very, very, very important scene for the whole show. So I'm sure a lot of voters already know it anyway, and the impact of it especially bodes well for you. So I wouldn't say that you're totally without a chance. I think you should probably be starting to prepare a speech, perhaps, maybe.
Oh my God! Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for your belief.
Yeah. So. We've also, Emilia, we don't see Daenerys sending heaps of ravens, and I thought that could perhaps be because she's got the letterhead would take up too much of the page. She's got so many titles from Daenerys Targaryen, Stormborn, the Blood of Old Valyria, Khaleesi, Mother of Dragons.
I got a lot of names.
Rightful Queen of the Iron Throne, and this year you added one, Breaker of Chains. What would
I didn't personally stomp my feet until they had a Breaker of Chains.
Do you have a favourite? If you had to pick one title for Daenerys, what would the title be?
Mother of Dragons.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I was gunning for.
Dany,
as well.
Mother of Dragons.
You can't beat Mother of Dragons.
No, MOD.
MOD, man.
Sure. You wish.
Mod.
I love it. We've got a question in the chat room from Shalia. Were you as shocked by the Red Wedding episode as the rest of the country?
Yes, definitely. I remember there are moments throughout Game of Thrones that you remember vividly the first time you read them, and the Red Wedding was certainly one of them. Where you're going to keep rereading and you think, no, they're going to get back up. They're gonna get back up and they're gonna live. But it was, it was pretty shocking. And then doubly so because it's just it really is an emotional thing saying goodbye to those cast members.
Yeah. That's terrible. Well, perhaps maybe before we wrap up, I've got one more thing to say, and that is, you know how like fantasy and sci-fi fans are usually pretty crazy and wacko. You are now one of the most famous fantasy characters of all time. What is it like now being out and about? Are you constantly hassled, or are people pretty cool with you, and what do they want to talk to you about?
Yeah, it does happen. I mean, the fact that I look so different, I think is kind of, it sort of protects me from that a lot. But people are normally just really, really nice and say lovely things. Khaleesi, Mother of Dragons, this adorable woman. I was in this shop the other day and she got me to sign her friend's wedding card. She was just going to her wedding. She was like, please could she have one from the Khaleesi? I was like, okay, that's really awesome. Of course I will. So there are funny things that happen like that, but yeah, it's quite, everyone's always really, really nice.
Okay. Shall we wrap it up there? We know that Emilia has a very busy day today, so Matt, do you want to just wrap things up and we'll say goodbye?
Yeah, well, thanks very much, Emilia, for giving up your time at a busy time, and all the best with the Emmys and all the best with Game of Thrones Season 4.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Emilia.
Okay.